ladies and gentlemen, and one of the most creative scores in the W.
With the first overall selection in the 2023 NHL Draft, the Chicago Blackhawks are very proud to select from the Regina Pats, the Western Hockey
League, Connor Bedard. Yo, baby! What's the word, kid? Oh, man, we're back. We're better than ever. I'm fresh out the shower. We got an amazing show for you guys tonight. I'm pumped about it. It is currently 12:33 a.m., August 10th, 2023, Thursday. And we are T-minus 2 days. 2 days. Count them, baby. 2 days away from Chicago Bears football, baby. Woohoo! Back, baby. Oh, man, I'm hype about it. I can't be more lit. I can't be more ecstatic. I could sit here, fake a smile, and keep screaming all day long. But if you guys been here for a while, you guys have been rocking out with us. You know how much this season's going to mean for us as fans, and just the expectations of how exciting and how ecstatic and how electrifying this team is going to be, on top of the fans itself, which is going to be just like the Seahawks of old. You know, the 13th man. You know, I mean, it's exactly what you want it to be. This is exactly how Chicago Bears football has been meant to be: exciting, ecstatic. We're here. We're ready for Bears football this Saturday, less than 2 days away. This Saturday at Soldier Field, 12 o'clock noon Central. We're here for it against the Tennessee Titans, with the quarterback carousel of Will Levis, Malik Willis, I think it's Malik Willis. I don't even know. And then you have Ryan Tannehill. So there's going to be a lot going on. But we're going to try to be there. We're going to be trying to cover the game. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. We're going to see Justin Fields, DJ Moore. We got a lot of things to break down today. We're probably not going to see Foreman or Claypool or St. Brown after injuries that occurred earlier today in training camp, but we'll see what happens. We're just going to take it day by day. I don't know too deep into those injuries. Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles obviously will probably address that tomorrow, but looking forward into it, man. Like, we're just back. We're back. We're better than ever. I mean, right now, I want to say this. If you are fiending for some regular season football, there are 3 shows you could watch right now on whatever social media platform you use, but on these networks. You can go on Netflix right now, obviously watch the quarterback series with Patrick Mahomes, Marcus Mariota, and obviously Kirk Cousins. That's been out a little while, probably already seen it, but I'm still currently in it right now. I'm on episode 4 of 8. I'm loving it. It's ecstatic. It's electrifying. It's everything you want it to be. And I'm really excited for season 2 of what that could potentially be. I like it better than Hard Knocks, to be honest. 2, Hard Knocks. Hard Knocks, the new season is out. Just dropped yesterday. I mean, at 10 p.m. last night, or the other night, I should say, if you're watching this in the morning, with Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. Absolutely sick to see Aaron Rodgers doing his thing, not in a Green Bay Packers uniform. So you love to see that. Him and Garrett Wilson's connection and how they've continued to grow. I'm excited to see if they have Dalvin Cook in that in a little while. We'll see what happens with that. Obviously, he still hasn't signed with the team, but I'm curious to see how the rest of the series pans out for Hard Knocks. And the third and final one that just dropped the other night, Johnny Manziel's story, is now on Netflix. And I am so excited to watch this story. It's all about everything he went through, from high school to college to the Cleveland Browns organization, et cetera, in the NFL. The partying is a huge part of it. Obviously, the arrests, obviously, you know, the alcohol abuse, and so much that goes into it. And Johnny football was such a huge statement in college football for so long. And his transition to the NFL was absolutely insane. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be fun. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to really just dive nose deep into that. But let's talk about it, baby. Let's talk about it. First and foremost, we're going to talk about injuries. We got to get that out of the way because it's just one of those things where you got to address it. You got to address the elephants in the room. So of course, the 12 Bears practice of training camp, Chase Claypool, Deontay Foreman, and I can never pronounce his first name, St. Brown, all go down with apparent injuries. At this time of the year, the Bears only disclose injuries if they're deemed to be long-term. So we don't know what's going on with those three players. That's per NBCSportsChicago.com. This is from Alex Shapiro. It's definitely valid. You know what I mean? Like, we'll find out in the morning, probably the extent of what those are going to potentially look like, at least from preseason week 1. I don't think they would go too deep in the detail about that going further until it became a problem or until you have to address it. But I'm really excited to just see Bears football again, man. I mean, we talked about it. Yannick Ngakoue, DeMarcus Walker, all these other guys that we're bringing in, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards. I mean, we could do this all day of guys we just brought into this and really just understanding that this is a new version of Chicago Bears football. We talk about this all the time. It's definitely something that we've addressed it, and we've had these conversations so many times about, what we think the expectations are going to be and how we want to see it. But today we're going to be talking a little bit more about training camp specifically, and obviously what we've seen so far. First and foremost, I want to say I do want to give Chase Claypool his flowers because he showed up to training camp and he absolutely balled out. He did his thing. He did exactly what you needed him to do. His footwork looked clean. His release looked great. I mean, you're loving his ball movement. You're loving everything you're seeing from him. It's exactly what you want from him. And I would have liked to see it a little bit earlier, but obviously he was doing his own things during the offseason, and you can't be mad at somebody, for not wanting to put in that extra work when he doesn't technically have to. It's kind of like coming in on your off day. But if you want the difference between being good and great, that's the things you got to do. We saw Darnell Mooney, we saw Tyler Scott, Cole Kmet, Justin Fields, DJ Moore, all those other guys were working together all summer long in Florida. So, I felt like he should have been a part of that, but he was also a little banged up. So I give him the benefit of the doubt. But unfortunately, on the 12th day of training camp, that's when the injury goes down. So it's definitely something I'm paying attention to. Is definitely something that we all know how I feel. We all know how everybody felt for the majority about the Chase Claypool trade to begin with. It was definitely something that needed to happen, that being bringing in another wide receiver for Justin Fields. I just think for a second round pick of that severity, when you look at it really being a first round pick at the end of the day, a low end first round pick, it's just really unfortunate that was the wide receiver that you got. You know what I mean? Like, we had conversations like, would we go after guys like Tim Patrick? Would we go after guys like Jerry Jeudy? Would we go after guys that could potentially become available like Adam Thielen? DJ Moore was one of those guys we talked about. Could we potentially get him for a second round pick? Those were the guys I was really looking at. And then when you look at obviously or even at that time bringing in Odell. But when you look at obviously, bringing in Chase Claypool, I was a big believer in Mike Tomlin. I still am a big believer in Mike Tomlin. And I believe Mike Tomlin doesn't give up on you if there isn't a reason. You know what I mean? There has to be a reason Mike Tomlin's giving up on you. And it's not because of George Pickens. It's not because of anybody else in that pipeline or anybody else who you could say on that depth chart is going to take the job of Chase Claypool. I think at the end of the day, you've seen him work with guys like Big Ben through the rape allegations. You've seen, got him deal with obviously Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell and their situations, financially, and then Antonio Brown just everything with that. There's no way to pinpoint that specifically. But looking into that and understanding, like, as long as you're working, as long as you're on the field, giving it 110%, Tomlin's going to give you the benefit of the doubt. And I think that's kind of the conversation we were hoping he'd have that in Chicago, of just kind of that mindset and understanding like, yeah, I got traded. And that's honestly what happened, and there's no other way to go around that. You know what I mean? And he was so productive, him, Juju, and AB in the time that they were spending together. And I think, when you kind of start to lose sight of that and you start to become more Hollywood and you start to become more social media based, I think you start to have those issues and you start to kind of lose yourself and really where you're supposed to be at. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like it'd be in a sense if Mike on the Mic or the Shy Kid got 100,000 followers, and instead of talking about sports, I'm just like talking about myself, or I'm just talking about other things. And it's like, at the end of the day, like, you got to remember what the goal is. You got to remember what you're doing. You got to remember why you're doing it. And I think he kind of lost sight of that during the last couple of years in his tenure with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I loved what we saw from him in training camp so far. He's there. He's patient. He's understanding. I mean, he's trying to learn this playbook. I've heard mixed reviews from different people. I've heard some people say he's picking up the playbook. I've heard other people say he's not. I really don't know because I'm not there. I'm also not him. You know what I mean? The only person that knows that are the people in that organization from top to bottom. And obviously, we are going to know that as fans very quickly if he does or he doesn't, because it's going to show on the field. And I think that's what makes it not just football, all sports just so beautiful, because you could tell so quickly if somebody doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. That's just the reality of the situation. I mean, we have these conversations all the time. You know, you can see it on a runner's face in baseball if they don't know what's going on. You can see it on a pitcher's face if he doesn't have anything left. You can see it on a quarterback's face if he doesn't know the reads, if he doesn't know what guys are going to do, if he can't read a defense. You know, you could see it every single time. And I think at the end of the day, the way you have to look at it for Chase Claypool is, and I mean this in the most respectful way possible, we just got to F around and find out. Because that's really the only way we're going to go about this. We could speculate. We could say how great it's going to be. We could say the Bears are going 12-4, the Bears are going 17-0, or whatever you want to say. Going to the Super Bowl, who knows? But at the end of the day, you don't know until you know. And I think it's unfortunate that now we're starting to have these conversations again. You know, he started off training camp and obviously OTAs, being on the PUP list, and now immediately going back on it. And they obviously bring up Dante Pettis, and they bring him up, and now it's giving him more opportunity. We're probably going to see a lot more of him very soon. And I'm excited to just see, you know, what he's going to be able to potentially do, because you're fighting for a roster spot right now. You know, you have Velus Jones, you have Tyler Scott, two guys, one guy's in year 2 and one guy's in year 1. You know, are you going to be able to beat those guys out? You already have Darnell Mooney, DJ Moore, and Chase Claypool. You know what I mean? Like, Pettis is really going to be fighting for an opportunity to make this team. So I think this is one of those things that we're going to see in training camp between obviously Walker and Peterman and Justin Fields, the connection between them and Dante Pettis. Dante Pettis had a very good training camp and a very good preseason last year. It was just the regular season where you didn't see a lot of them. But yeah, man, I'm excited about it nonetheless. I got Frankie's in the comments. He said, "Can't wait to see my guys tomorrow, or finally see my boys tomorrow." I mean, it's exciting, bro. It's exciting. We're here and we're ready, bro. Football is back. By the way, getting a show this late is everything I need. Frankie, you're everything I need and more. We appreciate you coming in, man. I always do. But getting into that, man, it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be fun, and I think right now, going into training camp, there are a few notable guys that I really want to break down, a few notable guys that I think are going to be really exciting and a lot of fun to watch. You know, a couple of those guys that I wanted to name, just kind of having those conversations. One, Dante Pettis. I think you look at him and you look at what he's been able to bring. You know, he's not great whatsoever. He's not a great wide receiver. He's not a good wide receiver. He is an average wide receiver. But with Chase Claypool going down, with Darnell Mooney still kind of figuring out that ankle injury, with Tyler Scott being a rookie, with Velus Jones not being as impressive last season and still kind of lackluster as it currently states in year 2, you know, you're looking at a guy that, like we just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, you can really see run up the board. So I'm really excited to see Pettis, see what he can bring. He's a competitor, man. And that's one thing I do love about him. That's one thing I do praise about him. He competes his ass off, and I want to see him be great. I want to see him do big things. Potentially cracking this roster could be huge for him, whether that's on special teams or whether that's obviously with the wide receiver core. But it's going to be interesting nonetheless to see what happens with that. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Another wide receiver we're going to name, Tyler Scott out of Cincinnati, an absolute dog, an absolute stud. This is a guy who can run under a 4.4 flat. I mean, this is an absolute stud. A versatile slot guy that you could look at and say, man, this is a guy. I'm going to go out and say he is a more athletic version of a Scotty Miller. I would give that comparison. That's really where I'm at with it. I think he's a lot more versatile. I think he's a lot more athletic. I think he's faster. He's quicker. He's denser. I love that. But he's denser, but he's also built. You know what I mean? Like, he's just not as big. He's not as bulky. He's going to be able to get through guys. He's going to be able to get through linebackers. He's going to be able to beat man coverage. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about this kid. I want to see him flourish, especially with the RPOs and the Wildcat plays that Justin Fields will be able to provide, the play action plays. I mean, it's just going to be beautiful. I'm naming a lot of things right now, and they're all different schematics, but I think he can be a part of so many different pieces, and I think it's going to be great. I think it really is. And you get a guy like Chase Claypool who goes down, and that sucks. But that's also great for a guy, like Velus Jones, like Tyler Scott, like Dante Pettis, who you could look at these guys and say, if you're the number 3, I have no problem. If Pettis is the number 3, that's not a problem. You have DJ Moore and obviously Darnell Mooney as your 1 and 2. Cole Kmet, your number 1 wide receiver, next to Robert Tonyan, who's a pretty solid tight end, pardon me, as well. You look at those guys from a receiving perspective, they're putting up wide receiver numbers. Cole Kmet can give you over 700 yards. I truly believe that. You look at the red zone threat that Robert Tonyan is, he can give you 5 to 10 touchdowns a year. I truly do believe that as well. It's one of those things where it's not the end of the world. So I'm excited about that. Obviously, first 2 guys, Pettis and Scott, I'm really hyped about it. Next up, we have D'Onta Foreman, obviously goes down, running back for the Chicago Bears. We brought him in from the Carolina Panthers after we just brought everybody in from the Carolina Panthers. We brought in Foreman, Moore, Walker, their first rounds, their second rounds. We brought in everything. Fuck it. We took it all. We did not care. We took everything from the Carolina Panthers organization this year, and we were unapologetic about it. Good luck with Bryce Young. But no, in all seriousness, you look at that, though, and you say, with him going down, what does that mean for Roschon Johnson coming out of Texas? He's one of those guys that Bijan Robinson obviously took his job back in 2019, 2020. But the reality of the situation is this kid was an absolute stud way before that. This kid, when you look at his stats, obviously as a backup, you look at that and you go, can you be RB1 in the NFL? I think it's very possible. And I think this is a kid that a lot of people are sleeping on. This is a kid that, from an athletic standpoint, could be both from the passing and rushing perspective. He's somebody that I could look at and say, I think he's going to be big time. I really do. I think he's going to be big time. You're looking at his stats right now. From a freshman, sophomore, and junior, 2022, he didn't have incredible stats in 2022 as a senior. He had 93 attempts with 554 yards and 5 touchdowns. It's just really what it is, man. And it's one of those things where, you have to take it for what it is. You have to take it for what it is, and understand that, it's not going to be the greatest all the time, but it's something, man. And it really is. He had 1 receiving touchdown, and 682 yards receiving. So you look at that. On top of it, this is the big picture. As a starter, Roschon Johnson, as a freshman, in 13 games, had 123 attempts his freshman year with 649 yards, 7 touchdowns rushing, 23 yards receiving, and 153 yards and 1 touchdown receiving, obviously. 2020 comes around. He plays 10 games with 80 attempts for 418 yards and 6 touchdowns. It's not great, but going into 2021, he has 96 attempts, 569 yards, and again, 5 touchdowns. He's a guy that even as a backup going into it, you see what he could potentially be and you see how he can grow. So with Foreman out, I think it's going to be really exciting. I think it's going to be really fun to see what this kid could potentially do. I'm a big Khalil Herbert fan. I'm not out on Herb. I love Herb. I think Juice is an amazing guy. I think he's an amazing player. He has a lot of fucking tenacity to this kid, man. I mean, there's not enough I could say about him. He's absolutely incredible. Athletically, he reminds me so much of Jordan Howard in the fact of like I always say, we've talked about this many times. Like one thing I had a problem with with David Montgomery was, he would stand in the pocket and look for a hole. And by the time that happened, he's already getting grabbed. And yeah, sure, you have the most yards after touch, but at the end of the day, it's only like 4 yards gained because you got touched behind the line of scrimmage. And that's really what it is. Whereas Khalil Herbert, second he gets the ball, doesn't see a hole, boom, makes one, gets in the cut, goes after it, gets dirty. And you love to see that. I mean, it's really one of those things where I think it's Khalil's job to lose. And as well as Roschon could potentially do, I still think at the end of the day, they'll rock out with Khalil. And I love Khalil so much. Now, the only problem with Khalil, just like David Montgomery, was both of them were on this carousel of injuries. They were all in the IR carousel, and it's, it happens all the time. We got so many players already on there throughout the NFL. Nonetheless, just the Chicago Bears, and the Bears just added 3 guys to it: St. Brown, Claypool, and Foreman. So, we're just continuing to add to the list. And it's super frustrating when it's not even preseason yet. But, it's going to be a lot of fun, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm pumped about it. Another guy I'm really excited to see is just Tremaine Edmunds. Tremaine Edmunds is one of those guys, big name. So we're not naming, low-end guys. I think when you have these conversations, you ask yourself, like, why do you want to see this guy? What is going to be different this go around? It's not Khalil Mack. It's not Akeem Hicks. It's not guys like Roquan Smith going into their 4th year. Like, this is a guy that in the Buffalo Bills defense was somewhat of a role player. Like, and as good as he is at that, like, they have so many amazing pieces, and he was just a part of it. And they're still a great defense even without him. So I'm really excited to see how he's going to pair up with Jack Sanborn, TJ Edwards, obviously Walker and Ngakwe and everybody else, Dexter in the trenches. It's going to be a lot of fun as a rookie. We're going to get into Dexter in a little bit. But it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. I want to see him as the leader. I want to see him as one of the faces of this defense. And I think that's somebody that a lot of people are sleeping on right now. I think a lot of people are focused on, obviously, the big names, the Jalen Johnsons, the Jaquan Briskers, the Eddie Jacksons, the Jack Sanborns, and that's cool. The Yannick Ngakwe's, and that's great. But Tremaine Edmunds is the guy, in my opinion, that I think. I even saw the other day they have TJ Edwards rated higher in the top 10 linebackers in the league, which the Chicago Bears have 2 of. That being TJ Edwards, I believe, is at 6, and then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Tremaine Edmunds is like 7 or 8. But somebody don't quote me on that. But that's really how I took it. And I was like, I think Tremaine Edmunds is a phenomenal linebacker. I think he just didn't get those opportunities because he's also sharing a lot on the field. But this guy is everywhere and anywhere you need him to be. And I think that's what's the most exciting about him, man. He's just a lot of fun. I'm hyped, though, man. I think Tremaine Edmunds is going to be an absolute beast. So to see him in that element versus, kind of just like being a great piece to an amazing defense. Now you are the face of the defense. I'm excited about it, man. I really am. Next up, first and foremost, I want to give some love to Tennessee, baby. Go Vols, baby. GBO. Go Big Orange. You love to see it. Darnell Wright. I want to see Darnell Wright. I want to see Darnell Wright do well. I want to see him protecting Justin Fields. I want to see the guy that I said during the draft was a bulldozer mixed with, what did I say? Mixed with an engine, a car engine. Like, this guy is a stud. He's like a race car and a bulldozer built into one, and it's a beautiful thing to see. So I want to see that at the NFL level. I saw him protect Hendon Hooker the entire year and Joe Milton, and the way he was able to utilize that at Tennessee against teams like Georgia, against teams like Alabama, against teams like LSU, going up against those kind of teams all the time. You start to feel that, and you start to feel like, hey, I'm going up against the best of the best, and I'm doing pretty well. The way he manhandled guys like Jalen Carter. He manhandled Jalen Carter in the Georgia defensive line. So I'm excited about that, man. I'm really excited to see what he can potentially bring to this team. And I think going into it, it's going to be a lot of fun to see a franchise tackle back on the Chicago Bears offensive line. We haven't had one in a very long time, that we were very adamant was going to be here for a very long time. So I'm excited about that. Another guy that I think, you look at and say, who's this kid going to be? Who is he going to become? And Gervon Dexter is that guy. He's obviously someone right now that you could look at and say the job is his to lose. He's from Florida. He went to the Florida Gators organization, nose tackle, one of those guys, defensive tackle, nose tackle, whatever you want to put him at. Gervon Dexter Sr. is one of those guys that you can say it's his job to lose, because there really isn't anybody else in this entire system that I say is going to start over him. But he's an absolute stud, man. He talked the other day about, one day he wants his name and his jersey hanging in the rafters. And I heard all the fans. He obviously didn't know that the Bears announced they weren't going to be retiring any other jerseys after retiring 13 of them. Crazy. But all well deserved. But it's definitely a conversation where you look at that and you say, listen, at the end of the day, if that's the mentality you're carrying, who's to say we don't retire it? Who's to say we don't say, fuck it, let's just do it? You know what I mean? That's what you want to see from these guys, though. Everybody took that and just obviously they nitpick. Oh, you don't know, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. The idea is he wants to be the greatest to do it. He wants to be one of the great ones. And Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan, Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, everybody's talked about it before. When you walk through Hallis Hall and you see the players on the walls and you see the pictures and you see the memorabilia and you see the statues, you feel it. You feel the defensive presence, especially for defensive players. There's obviously the Willie Gaults, the Jim McMahons, the Walter Paytons, the Gale Sears of the world, but you feel that defensive presence. The Brian Urlachers, the Mike Singletaries, the Dan Hamptons, the Doug Planks, the Stephen McMichaels. You feel that. And you feel it throughout the entire organization. The Brian Urlachers, even, the Peanut Tillmans, like we can do this all day. The monsters of the Midway to date, Akeem Hicks, Khalil Mack, Danny Trevathan. Like those are guys you look at and you say, those are the guys that are going to do it. The Doug Atkins of the world. I geek over it, even just talking about it. I can't stop. But you have those conversations and you say, the Otis Wilsons. Okay, I'm done. I promise I'm done. I'm done. But you have those conversations and you say, that's the mentality you have now. And that's the Chicago Bears mentality. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be sick. I think it's going to be a great time. It's really going to come down to, at the end of the day, who wants it more. And I think Gervon Dexter is one of those guys who wants it, man. He's hungry. He's the Florida boy. Like those guys, man. And a lot of people joke around about the state of Florida, but most of those guys, where they come from, it's a crazy upbringing, man. And it really is. So, he's got that hustle to him, and I love it. And he's one of those guys that I would want to go to war with. So, it's going to be exciting to see what happens. We got a couple other guys, obviously. Jaquan Brisker. I'm a big fan of Jaquan Brisker. I believe he can be an all-pro. I've had so many conversations with my boy Kev and so many others about this. Like, he is an absolute stud. He reminds me of a Derwin James, or even a hybrid of Eddie Jackson and Jamal Adams in a way. I think he's an absolute stud. My guy Andre is in the comments right now and says, Mike, what is the ceiling for this Bears team? I think playoffs. I think that's the conversation you need to have. And that was the next segment we're going to be talking about right now. But, my last point on Brisker is, like, we saw him go out with a concussion last year, and I was really curious to see, what that season could have finished out with. He led the team in sacks with 4.5, and we only had 6.5 at the end of the year. So it was horrible. But as a former safety, anytime your safety has the most sacks, like, that is such a problem. It's not even funny. It sums up the season defensively, but it's definitely a high note to know that, even with all these other guys in the mix now, Jaquan's going to be able to get to the football. He's going to be able to get to the quarterback, because we have a lot of other guys, Walker, obviously Dexter. You have guys like Ngakoue, Tremaine Edwards, Sanborn. We can do this all day. And now you can have safety sneaks. You can do QB sneaks, or cornerback sneaks, pardon me, and a bunch of other different things. And you can really blitz the fuck out of an offense. And it's something we just could not do for the life of us. If we did it last year, we would have been giving Justin Jefferson or somebody else an 80-yard bomb to the house. You know what I mean? And I think that's definitely something we can actually compete this year defensively. We don't just have to pray to God, we get a stop or they mess up. Last topic we're going to be talking about tonight, obviously, expectations for the Chicago Bears team. There's a lot of conversations. Andre had a comment right here that I really love. It's nice to see the NFC North competitive for once, and that's really what it is. And I think for Bears fans, before the Yannick Ngakoue signing, you're like, okay, well, there's still holes. You know what I mean? And there are big ones. You know what I mean? You have a rookie defensive tackle. You have a new defense that they're great. On paper, they're great, but they still need to play together. They still need to mesh. But at the end of the day, you don't have a pass rusher. That was really the main thing we're missing. We have Walker, and that's cool, but we need another guy on the other side to be able to utilize that, or they're just going to double him. And you bring in Yannick Ngakoue, and I think that changes everything, man. Now, obviously, he's not going to have 15-plus sacks, more than likely. I mean, he might. Who knows? But that's not the expectation. But the fact that we're going to be able to put pressure on the football, we're going to be put pressure on the quarterback, while also having a superstar offense. I think that's the idea right now. The offense is number one and the defense is number two, and that's the first time pretty much in Bears history that it's ever really been that way, in a positive light. You know what I mean? Like, normally it was just because, both of them are horrible, but this one's a little bit better. Like this time, like last year, Justin Fields was the highlight of 2022. Doesn't mean that the offense was good. The offense was horrible. You know what I mean? The defense was even worse. So it's not a bright side. But looking at this and understanding that the offense is great on paper, and then the defense is good to above average and could potentially be great if they continue to develop. I'm excited about it, man, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But until then, baby, we're going to be talking about it. I'm so excited to be back. I'm so excited to be with you guys. Thank you guys for rocking with me for as long as you have. I truly do appreciate everybody that's been here. No matter what you got going on in life, man, just keep doing your thing. And we're going to rock out together all year long. It's going to be a lot of fun. Coming up on the 3-year anniversary of Mike on the Mic. It truly is a blessing and it truly is a blast to have you guys in my life. We're almost at 10,000 followers, which is absolutely crazy. Follow the TikTok if you see it in the ticker below at theshy.kid to get that to 10K. But I appreciate every single one of you guys, man. And, you know, I say this all the time. And before we get out of here, because I'm not trying to make a whole TED talk about it, but like, fuck what you heard, bro. Like, do what you feel. And I think it's so important to just be the best version of you. And I think at the end of the day, you know, you have to believe in you before anything. I know it's so cliche and it's so corny, but, you know, at the end of the day, nobody cares. And I posted that earlier on my Facebook if you got me on there. And, you know, it's a real conversation. You know, nobody knows your story. Nobody knows what you've been through. Nobody knows what's going on in your life. And frankly, nobody cares. Nobody cares at all. Like, don't make an excuse. Don't let your story define your life. Let your story define how you react to it. It's not about what happened to you. It's about how you respond to it. And I think, you know, in this life, man, you get one go and you got to make it the best you can. So I'm excited about it, man. I'm excited for Bears football. Until the next time, we will see you guys Saturday in post game. It's going to be a blast. Peace.
Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making up plays. We talking the game, get you to the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.